Now that Angels general manager Perry Minasian spoke, we're ready to share what he got right in his press conference and what he got wrong.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Perry Minasian spoke to the media on Saturday about the state of the team and what they're going to prioritize this offseason. And so what did Perry get right and what did Perry get wrong? And we're going to discuss what we mean by each. But before we talk about Perry and the Angels, we want to thank our sponsor, Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, before we jump into our conversation today, just want to remind everybody that you can grade the 2025 roster by getting into the episode description. There's a link there, and you can fill out a Google survey. We'll have the results on the show soon, and we'll be happy to share those with you. Always a fun time to recap the roster and kind of see where everybody stands according to the fans. So take some time to do that. Jump on into the episode description and get into the roster report card for 2025.
John, yesterday we discussed what Perry discussed at his press conference last Saturday, and today we're going to talk about what Perry got right and what Perry got wrong. And here's what we mean. There were things that Perry said that were factual, things that align with what we know, but there were also things where Perry said, we know as fans, where he's stretching the truth or maybe he's spinning it to make it sound good. So John and I, as the Super Halo Bros, are going to get to the facts for you. We're going to get to the truth. We're going to point out what's real and what is Angel spin. But first, John, let's recap what Perry Minasian said at that press conference on Saturday.
Yeah, he started by saying that he will be back for 2026. Remember, this is the final year of the extension that he signed at the end of 2023. It was a 2-year deal. Remember, his original deal in November of 2020 was for 4 years. That deal was set to expire after the 2024 season, but already re-signed Perry for another 2 years, Mike.
Yeah. So the first thing that Perry talked about, the details he discussed, was what they plan to do with the managerial position. Perry said all the other issues are secondary to this, and he said he calls this a huge hire. This is something that they're going to have to nail. He said they can't miss this. Perry said that there's really no timetable to hire a new manager, but they're hoping that the process doesn't take too long. He indicated that there's going to be outside candidates and there's going to be some external candidates. He also said that the Angels managerial hire could come as early as this week. Now, you said on the show yesterday that you are going to anticipate maybe a Wednesday, possibly Thursday announcement, which makes sense, right? Because we really don't know. We're just taking a random guess. Why not take a random guess? You were 1 day off about the press conference. Maybe you'll be no days off when it comes to this. Now, the reason they want to move quickly, we mentioned this yesterday, is because the coaching staff needs to be rounded out. And right now, all the current coaches are in limbo, but they have the freedom to pursue other opportunities, which means that they can go wherever they want. They can sign with whoever they want to sign with, depending on what the Angels do. So that means guys like Johnny Washington can go somewhere. That means guys like Barry Enright can go somewhere. It also means the guys that ruin Logan O'Hoppe can go somewhere, but I think we're okay with that.
I love that. Now, as he spoke about the manager, he did address why Ron Washington was let go. And according to Perry, it was performance-based. On that decision, Perry said it was obviously a really tough decision. I love Ron Washington. I've been with him in 3 different places, in Texas and Atlanta and here. He's a heck of a baseball man. At the end of the day, this is a job. You have to make tough decisions. And we discussed all day Monday with ownership, just talking through the season. Felt like there needed to be a different voice.
Yeah, Perry was pressed on his personal job performance, specifically by Sam Blum, and he said he's not worried about the past, but focused on making this team better in the present. Just a reminder that Perry Minasian has a worse winning percentage in his 5 years than the previous GM, which was Billy Epler, did in his 5 years. And that's why the question was relevant and important. In fact, John Carpino at Billy Epler's firing, when they had the press conference about that, he said something was wrong in the organization. They just weren't winning on the field, and they felt that there needed to be a change made in the organization. And that was after a better 5-year stretch than the 5-year stretch that they've had in the last 5 years. And so we discussed on yesterday's show, why'd Wash go and not Perry? So if you missed that, you can check that out on yesterday's show.
Now, Perry also spoke about the team, and he addressed the budget for 2026, said, we haven't gotten to that part yet. I haven't thought that far ahead, as we like to say here.
Yep.
But he did add that he believes that Artie will invest in the club like he always has invested, and Perry doesn't see that changing. And then he spoke about upgrading the roster. He said, we need to start with pitching. We've got to pitch better. That's number 1, number 2, and number 3. Are you planning on signing some number 1s and 2s?
That would be great.
That would be very nice. That's
Yeah.
what he meant by that, but that's not what he meant. But he didn't share a plan for that yet, Mike, but he did add that Reed Detmers will be back in the starting rotation in 2026. He said Reed's earned that and that he'll be part of the rotation. Then we'll see what happens with the last 2 spots. And then he talked about the plan for third base and a few other players, didn't he, Mike?
Yeah, he said they're looking to upgrade third base and center field. And we mentioned this yesterday. He talked about the potential of Joe Adell returning to center field. The defensive metrics were better with Joe in center field than with really kind of anybody else. Bryce Diodosio had a small sample size. He was better, but the team performed better with Joe in center field. Now, you are of the opinion that they need to let Joe know long before they get to spring training that this is what they want him to do. So they're going to have to make a decision about that very soon. Then he also talked about Mike Trout. They said they want Mike Trout back on the field in right field instead of limited to designated hitter. Again, we had a discussion about this yesterday where they said, we're just going to play it by ear. We're going to see how it goes instead of, again, telling Mike Trout, this is what we plan on doing with you, Mike Trout, because they're leaving it up to him. And I just don't know if that's a wise decision. Now, Perry added that they're working on figuring things out with Jorge Soler and where he's going to play. They said playing the field wasn't best for Jorge Soler, that his body didn't respond well to playing in the field that often. Again, John, you brought up the point yesterday, like what changed from Atlanta to Anaheim? Why can't he do that anymore? But those were some of the infield and outfield conversations he had. And then he also, Johnny, he talked about Christian Moore, didn't he?
Yeah, he said that he's going to come into camp and compete in some form or fashion. Made it sound like the Angels consider second base to be an open position. And then he addressed the defense and the strikeouts by saying they needed to get better and be better. And finally, when asked if the Angels are close enough to contend next season, Perry Minasian was very non-committal. He said, I don't make predictions. The goal this offseason is to make the team as good as we can make it. I understand we do this for the fans. This is the reason why we play. They're the ones who come and support us. They come out. We're going to do everything in our power to build a team that's capable of going out there and winning night in and night out, and a team that the fans really enjoy watching, and an exciting brand of baseball. Don't ask me why I laughed at that. Minasian said he was encouraged by this past season. One of the issues, he said, is that we've seen was consistency this year. We saw flashes when we played really good teams. We played some of our best baseball, did all the little things right. Intensity was there. And then there were times where we played teams that don't necessarily line up from a win-loss record at certain times every year. And we performed very poorly, very inconsistent, played sloppy. So consistency is going to be a big key in how we turn this thing around.
Yeah, I think you were laughing because there was no conversation about actually winning and actually getting to the playoffs. It was just like, we want the fans to enjoy this team.
Yeah.
Enjoy the suck, Angel.
We're going to hit a lot of home runs and it's going to be awesome. There's going to be fireworks and fire and all that stuff.
We got some drones fly over the stadium. You're going to love it. You're going to love it whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, that is everything that Perry said in the press conference. And of course, we did discuss and break this down yesterday. However, where we want to take the conversation today is what Perry got wrong and what Perry got right. So we appreciate making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, that's what Perry said. So what did he get right? What did he get wrong? And we're going to start with the wrong, and that's going to happen in just a minute.
Most of us can't name all of our financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or it's properties or investments. When you don't have a full picture, you end up leaving money on the table, and that's why you need Monarch Money. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together, all in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone, built for people with busy lives, that's what Monarch Money is for. And if you've put off organizing your finances, don't do it any longer. Monarch Money is ready to organize you. They're going to do the heavy lifting, link all of your accounts in minutes, and they're going to help you see everything very clearly. And you're going to finally feel like you're in control of your resources, and you're never gonna have to touch a spreadsheet, which is the best part. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB at monarchmoney.com, and you're gonna get half off your first year. Again, 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the promo code LockedOnMLB.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out on your smart TV, on YouTube. You got the video side there, so you can see our smiling faces as well. But regardless of that, whether you're watching or listening, the best way to get into today's conversation is by heading on over to YouTube, finding today's show, and getting in the comments section. We read everybody's comments. Now, we do our best to get back to everybody's comments, but first and foremost, we do read everybody's comments. So with that said, hit us up on social media as well at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros. We'd love to hear from you there and get your thoughts on today's discussion.
All right, Johnny, let's talk about what Perry got wrong at the press conference last Saturday. And when we say wrong, here's what we mean. Where he overreached, where he undercut his credibility, or he had a very weak position. Those are the conversation starters for us. These are the more vulnerable spots in the organization and what he had to say. Things that we as fans can push back on and hold him to. So let's start, John, with the first thing that Perry got wrong. It was this, that there was really a lack of accountability for where this team has been, especially in the last 5 years. And there was a continued vagueness about where the team was headed. Many of his answers felt evasive, felt like he was deflecting blame. For example, when he was asked about his performance over the last 5 years, he said, well, that's a question for somebody else. And so then Sam pushed back, Sam Blum of the Athletic pushed back and said, well, then could you just talk about you, or could you talk about like you let Wash go because he didn't perform well? And he again said, that's a question for somebody else. And here's the reality. I know we're not looking for or asking for Perry to say, man, I suck, Artie should fire me. That's not what we're asking for, right? But what we are asking for is some sort of admission that his time with the Angels hasn't been good at all, right? Yeah. I mean, the record shows that. Maybe something like the last few years have been disappointing. I need to put a better team together so that the results are better. I'm committed to doing that this offseason. I mean, does that sound like something that should have been said that was better than what we got, John?
Yeah, to me, Mike, it seems like an easy answer to make. And it should be, hey, I know the record at the major league level has not been what we want it to be. However, what we've been trying to do is create a baseline for this team, in the sense that we're drafting players, we're bringing in talent that can help us out at the major league level, we're bringing in talent that we can develop for a few years and make sure that they infuse the major league club with that talent. And you're already seeing it. Zach Neto, you're seeing it with, Reed Detmers changing the way that he pitched. You're seeing it with Nolan Schonable, right? That feels like a layup, Mike, to say, hey, I know that at the MLB level, things are not where we want them to be. But I feel like we're getting there. And I think that if we see this plan through, we're going to be able to infuse our major league club with the talent that we've brought in. It takes a couple of years and it does take time, but we will see results with some of these guys that we're bringing up. That doesn't seem very hard. That doesn't seem very difficult at all.
Yeah, and it's a layup that he missed because he didn't use the little square in the backboard. That's why you missed those layups. And that's the problem.
Corner.
Right. That's the problem with Perry Minasian. It seems so easy to answer that. It seems so easy to answer like that, John. And honestly, and I've been contending this on Locked On Angels for the last year. Like, I think he wins over Angel fans if he says something along those lines. I think he says to Angel fans that we are trying to build a scaffolding, build a core. We're trying to develop these guys. They keep using the competitive word and trying to push for that third playoff spot. That's not visionary. That's not exciting. Well, that's not inspiring.
They really think, and this comes from the top down, they really think that we're dumb, Mike. They really think that all we want to see our home runs and fireworks and all that stuff. And like, the truth is that to say that you're competitive year over year over year over year, we're not dumb. We're not blind. We're not stupid. We can see the results on the field. That's not competitive baseball. Does it look competitive at times? Yeah. But what? 5% of the time out of 162 games, you looked competitive in 10 of them, right? And so it's frustrating to, and it's demeaning to fans to say, yeah, we're going to be competitive. We try to be competitive every year. No, you don't. You're not trying to be competitive every year. That's everybody can see it. And even non-Angel fans can see it as well.
Yeah. Now, the second thing he got wrong, John, is Perry continues to underestimate the organizational constraints, specifically with Artie Moreno's role and the budgetary limits. He seems to love avoiding discussing or acknowledging just how much control or lack of control he has under Artie Moreno. And Angel fans believe that the real power is with Artie, and Perry's silence there just kind of undermines his credibility. And it's interesting that his answer has been the same answer for the last 5 years, and saying about like the budget specifically, like, hey, Artie and Carol, they've always invested. And I think that that's just not a helpful response. It's almost like he's tone deaf when it comes to what the fans are thinking and feeling. And maybe he doesn't know what the fans are thinking and feeling because he doesn't care what the fans are thinking and feeling. And maybe Artie doesn't care what the fans are thinking and feeling, but there is a better answer there. He just got this one wrong, didn't he?
Yeah. The truth is that, we all know how this operation works, right? It's Artie Moreno making decisions. It's Perry Minasian having input on those decisions, but also going out and needing to sign the players and make these deals happen. One of the first things that Perry did, and I know it cost a draft pick and didn't turn out to be very good, but Noah Syndergaard was available. One of his first signings was getting him for the rotation. And they went out to dinner. They sat down. They talked about the club. They talked about the team. And it was like, that's how you handle your business. Like, this is how you're going to bring in free agents, is if you make that sort of time for them and have the conversations that they want to be having about the team and about the direction where they want to go. Mike, if they can't have these conversations with us, how are they going to have these conversations with free agents? Right? That doesn't make any sense to me, because free agents want to know where a club's going. They want to know what the future plans are. They want to know that they're being part of something that's leading somewhere. And so to give these very short answers, boilerplate answers, like I said yesterday, the same stuff we've heard for the last 5 years, that does nothing for the fans. It does nothing for free agency, and it does nothing for this organization. Now, Perry overstated that the team's progress this season when the gap is still very huge. He did say that the win total may have improved slightly, and that's what it did. But the team missed the playoffs yet again, and the deficits, including the roster and the depth that comes along with it, that remains a huge problem for this team. And so when he leans so heavily into the progress discussion and then adds the competitive discussion and the competitive element to it, it really feels like he's speaking out both sides of his mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wonder what the pitch is to free agents. I would love for that to be an interview of somebody that was really interested in coming to the Angels and sat down with Perry Minasian. I would love to hear that. Like, is there a pitch? Is there a 5-year plan? Because it certainly doesn't sound like that when Perry Minasian or anybody else from the organization talks to us as fans. It certainly doesn't sound like they have any sort of plan. It just feels like they're doing it day to day, like they're running a restaurant, right? Yeah. And today's special is this, and then hey, what do we have left over from today? Well, that's going to be tomorrow's special. That's what it feels like they're doing. There's no game plan. There's no storyline, John. There's no narrative with this team, and I don't know why they refuse. Again, why they refuse to even try or attempt to have a conversation about that. I would love to know what the pitch is, because I think you can pitch some really good things with this young team, but that's what he got wrong. Is he talks all about this progress, but reality is that the progress still caused you to miss the playoffs, and those young guys that you have a part of the core, they're going to be a little bit more expensive this season when you sign them, because now they're arbitration eligible.
Yeah. Mike, it goes back to the way I answered the first question about Perry's own performance. And when he talks about the progress, I mean, he pointed to the win and loss record. You and I have done more heavy lifting for this Angels club than it seems like Perry Minasian is willing to do. Am I wrong? Like, it feels like we're having the discussions that the team and especially the GM should be having. And when you talk about progress, you have to admit, 9-game improvement, but still not where we want to be. However, I'd point to Joe Adell in the season that he had, Zach Neto in the season he was having before he got hurt. Mind you, he missed the first month of the season, by the way. So you're seeing improvement from our young guys all around. How about Jose Soriano's season, man? There were a lot of growth moments where he had to struggle and learn. This is easy.
Right. You're really good at this.
I told you my voice was going to get high pitched on Tuesday.
All right, let's talk about the fourth thing he got wrong, John. There's the talk about having specific priorities, but then there's like no talk about the feasible follow through. For example, he mentions that they want to find a third baseman, and Murakami is a third baseman in Japan, right? Yeah. And he's a left-handed batter, which is what they're trying to prioritize. But are the Angels going to do whatever it takes to grab them? There isn't any clarity there when things like this come up. And I'm not saying that they need to say, we're going after him because you don't want to tip your hand. I understand that. But the big question is, will the Angels actually be able to land any of those types of players? Because the resources that they've used the last 5 years and the constraints that already puts on this team, they say no. And so when Perry says we're going to try to do center field and we're going to try to do third base and we're going to try to do a couple of pitchers, that doesn't seem feasible. It seems very hollow, doesn't it?
Well, you already know Murakami's going to go to the Dodgers because that's the Japanese international pipeline is to Los Angeles, right? But the truth is, Mike, Murakami's the kind of guy you should be spending Anthony Rendon money on. The guy's 25 years old, hits like a beast, right? The left-handed powered bat you need at the corner. And so, it's kind of Artie's own fault that Anthony Rendon money is not available to Murakami because you spend it, what is it now? 6 years ago? Like, it's crazy to me, man. And so, they have an idea of, third base and pitching and some outfield help. Okay, well, at least you identified what you need, but like you said, the follow through is not there, and the market restrictions are constraining them because they won't go over the luxury tax. You have what, $70 to $75 million toward the luxury tax already between two players because that's the annual average value of their contract. I mean, good grief, dude. You have to make a concession. You have to go over that luxury tax because otherwise you're not going to be able to afford anybody. And so, to me, it just feels like the fact that Perry's pointing to this stuff, but there isn't really any clarity on how they're going to address that.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Last thing that we think he got wrong is he seems to really be misreading like his own job security and how the fans feel about him. He's asserted that I'm not worried about my status. I'm going to be fine. Right. Like I've got this next year, but public pressure, I would say hostility and internal expectations, I think tell a very different story. And if team ownership does move him and relieve him of his job, then he's going to look incredibly tone deaf after this press conference. And wasn't it Tony Regan's that had a press conference and then like a day later he was let go, And so there's a part of me that says, I anticipate that maybe that's the case. Perhaps with all the things going on with the Angels off the field, that's not going to happen, as you pointed out on yesterday's show. But I wouldn't be surprised if something like that comes along where Albert gets hired and they're like, hey, guess what? He's going to be the GM and we're going to hire Torrey Hunter. So thanks, Perry. Right? I think that I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I wouldn't be surprised if they let Perry Minasian go and then they don't hire somebody, Mike. And then they just, they let
interim
Albert
GM John Carpino, right?
Yeah, exactly. They not even interim GM. It's going to be, a figurehead. And then, don't get me wrong. Maybe Artie's relying on Salmon and Finley and Langston and all those guys to give him advice and of course Pujols if it becomes the manager. So it really, he honestly sounded defeated to me. And I think part of that defeat is the fact that he has to go back to these same tired talking points that he's always gone back to. And the repetition from everything we've heard over the past 5 years still being there, that's just towing the company line. And I don't know that he has the ability to or the willingness to draw outside the lines there. But in the last year of your job, the last guarantee year that you have, I don't know, maybe you got to push the issue a little bit, but to not have the answers, like I said, how easy those layups were, it's just crazy to me that, those never really seemed to cross his mind during this press conference.
Man, there's nothing like catching a baseball game live, especially playoff baseball, but getting tickets, that can be really tough with the queues and the login screens and the surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. That's why you should use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you're going to pay. Honestly, it's faster and it's cheaper and it's less stressful than any other way that you'll buy tickets. So download the Gametime app right now, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There are some terms that do apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Download Gametime today. All right, John, let's talk about what Perry got right. And when we say right, let me explain that, because everybody's going to go, he got nothing right. And we understand that. Yeah, but here's the areas where his statements can be credible or where there's a bit of wiggle room. And maybe his argument wasn't entirely off base. I want to start, John, with he focused on adding the right pieces, third base, outfield, rotation. In fact, he started with rotation, which I think was important. He did mention depth as well. All of that's reasonable. All of that does represent the holes in the Angels roster. Signaling that these holes are a priority, I think, is important to acknowledge, I guess, right?
Yeah. At the very least. I mean, that's, the minimal effort that you can do there. But to hear that, it's like, all right, well, at least you understand what the team's needs are.
So you see what we see. That's good news.
Yeah, there we go. Now, second, Perry not worrying about his job status, but focusing on what's ahead. I mean, that's a good thing to focus on.
Yeah.
Whether his job is safe or not, he responded by saying, I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about making this team better. That's defensible, right?
Yeah.
Like, no GM wants to be seen as insecure or self-serving, right? He's just trying to project confidence there. Now, again, would it have been nice if he had answered, yeah, I understand where we've been and here's where we want to go. I think you add the context of, I understand the last 5 years have not been what we wanted them to be, but here's where we're going. And what I've built so far is part of that. I don't think that's too much to ask, Mike, at all.
No, not at all. And that's the third thing I think he got right. He did acknowledge that there wasn't enough progress, but did cite some of the incremental gains, admitted the total improvement in wins from last year to this year, although he did say that wasn't enough. And he did frame this season as a partial step and shared some statistical improvements, younger players development, which kind of helps his narrative. It's hard when we talk about like what he got right, because I then want to critique it and editorialize it because there are caveats to that. But we did that in segment 2. So we're going to focus on what he kind of, sort of, maybe got right.
Yeah. And the fourth thing that he brought up, that the evaluation the team needs, more consistency. He said that very clearly. They need to be more consistent. That's something that we've been screaming for on the show, I think, this whole season.
Yep.
The team was very up and down. You hit all those home runs, but you have all those strikeouts. That's the two extremes of baseball. And, that need for consistent play is going to be really important coming into next season, but they also need to make consistent adjustments at the plate. Like that's the missing ingredient. Like, you talk about consistency, but what does that look like? I go back to what I said yesterday. In a random game in September against the Royals, you play this Mike Scioscia small ball that, we saw flashes of like in the first 2 weeks, and then we saw it here and there. We even saw it like against the Dodgers, moving runners over, getting productive outs, doing stuff like that. And then it just seems to fall out the back of their head.
Yeah.
And that has to do with coaching, management, and then down to the players. What are you guys doing out there? You need to figure it out. And you need to remember what you did that was successful earlier in the day, or earlier in the week against this very same team. Do it again.
Yeah.
And so how they make those adjustments, to be more consistent is very, very important. It needed to be said more than just, yeah, we got to be more consistent. All right, well, what's that look like? Because, there's some truth in that they do need to be more consistent, but show us.
Yeah.
How are you going to fix the consistency? What are you going to do there? I don't know. You got to tell me. You're in charge, not me.
Yeah. Well, and to jump off of that, the last thing he got right was signaling that they have higher priorities on real needs instead of like the cash grab. Like they're going to go and get the big guy and that's going to be it, like the Trey Turner move or the Josh Hamilton move, right? That he seemed like he was a bit more measured in the direction that they want to go, at least when he said that they want to do pitching and then they want to do third base and then they want to do the outfield versus we're going to do everything, right? Because I don't think that they can do everything. I don't think he's allowed to do everything. And to your point about the random game in Kansas City in September where they looked like they were playing social ball, that's going to be really important for this offseason, that they're going to get a team that actually fits the managerial style of the guy that they bring in, right? Yeah. And what they had last year and the year before with Ron Washington was a very power-producing team. And Ron seems more of a small ball kind of guy, right? And they didn't have that.
He showed us that more in 2024, that's for sure. And so it's funny you mentioned that because and we'll allude to this later, for tomorrow's show, I have a really interesting conversation that I had with somebody on Reddit, and it inspired me to do some digging into, the kind of production the team has had with Perry Minasian. And the truth is, like what kind of ball were they playing with Ron Washington? Last year 2024 looked more like Ron Washington ball, whatever you want to call it. This year, it was very much dominated by slugging and power and home runs and being okay with the strikeout. And so you're right. Whoever they bring in has to be able to play the kind of ball that manager wants them to play. I'm curious, what kind of ball does Pujols want the team to play? Or Torrey Hunter or an Erstad, right? I would love to know what kind of ball they want them to play. So that's going to be really interesting. Final thing I'll say is this. I know that Perry said that they're going to need to address multiple needs, and that's going to take spreading the wealth around. Mike, I might get raked over the coals for this, but I think we're in need of an Artie Moreno signing on the level of a Pujols or a Josh Hamilton, CJ Wilson. And I know that, Hamilton didn't work out. CJ was fine, didn't measure up to what they wanted, right? Pujols, of course, 10 years on the end of his career. But what I'm saying is this team needs, I don't know, an Alonso, a Bregman, like something from this. And I'm not saying those guys are the solution. I'm saying on those guys on that level need to come in and support this young core. Like get a star that's going to do some damage for you and up the ante here. And so, I would have to think about what kind of Artie move should be done. And maybe this is a conversation for another time. But to me, now that the Angels kind of have their young guys and have a baseline, now you need some stars. You need Mike Trout to get back to being Mike Trout again. That's adding a star. But adding another star, maybe it's Murakami, maybe it's somebody else. I don't think you can go wrong with making a splashy free agent move. But the truth is that they're still going to need to spread the wealth if they're going to stay under that luxury tax and do what they always do, which, according to Perry Minasian, sounds like they're going to do as we head into next season. They're going to do what they always do, and they're going to get those guys on the fringes, try to build some depth, quote unquote. And we'll see, man. We'll see how they decide to handle it in 2026.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. And you can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Super Halo Bros. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, you alluded to it. We're going to talk about the offensive strategy, so to speak, with the Angels under Perry Minasian, and it feels a bit offensive. And so we're gonna dive into the deep numbers, and John's gonna say probably buckle up, nerds, a couple of times on tomorrow's show. So hold on to your butts. Tomorrow's show is going to be great. So join us for Locked On Angels.
Yeah, we hope you'll come back and join us for that. Again, I think it's really interesting to see the strategy the Angels have been implementing, no matter the manager, no matter the hitting coach, It's an interesting discussion that we'll be having tomorrow. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Those answers were just so easy. I don't know why it's so difficult for
They're right there. It's low-hanging fruit, man.
Yes, come on, lay it up.